joining. As of this point, you have listened to Anitra, my colleague, and Eric talk about the neuroscience of the brain. And Eric, I know, referenced a lot of the using I language, all that circles back to the core of interpersonal mastery. And my piece I'm really excited about because I'm going to be working with you all around an assessment called the Interpersonal Influence Inventory. Kind of a mouthful. But what it does, or what it will do, is give you a little bit of insight as to, what your influential style is. And in a minute here, I'll go through the 4 different styles. And then after we complete this video, I will have a couple of assignments for you all to try between now and class. You won't actually take the assessment until September, until the class time, but I'll give you enough of the pre-work that you'll get a good sense of what the assessment is about. So as I mentioned, this is the Interpersonal Mastery segment of your Intentional Leadership Program, and my big question that I'm going to be posing to you all is, how does your style of influence impact your organization, but also impact your just interpersonal relationships on a day-to-day basis? And just like with any assessment that you've ever taken, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, other ones that Mountain States offers, it's just a slice of the pie. It's not meant to label who you are or pigeonhole you. We're certainly not going to refer to you as, John is this. It's just a way in which we sort of show up, or like I like to say, the metaphor of airplane landing, how we land on people. So as I describe these, there might be some that you hear that you think, oh, I really want to be that. And then there'll be some styles that you might say, oh, I hope I'm not that. And the reality is that we are all of them in various situations. Just like there's a communication style assessment that we do, and it sort of talks about being direct or systematic. And I always say to folks that we can be all of those. It just depends on what the situation requires. So there are many ways in which we assess our style. One particular way is by soliciting feedback. And that's something that I'll tee up for you in a few minutes. But, between now and September, to really think about opportunities in the workplace to ask your colleagues, how am I showing up? And that can be really scary. It's very vulnerable to do that. And that's something that I know as a coach I really appreciate, is when my coachee shows up and is really vulnerable about sort of their personality or how they might approach things. So I'm just going to invite you to also think about ways in which you can be vulnerable in a safe way. I'm not asking you to go to work tomorrow and just, show up and say, all right, tell me everything about me, but just some windows of opportunities to do that. So what I'd like to do now is go over with you a little bit about the assessment, the 4 different styles, and I'll give you just a brief description, as we'll get into it more later. And as I'm going through this, I would encourage you to take a few notes about the 4 different styles, because that will then tie into some of your takeaway homework that you'll be working on. So, as I mentioned, the influential inventory is designed to create an awareness around your behaviors, about how you attempt to influence others. And it's really important to keep the word influence in mind and not manipulate or dupe, if you will. It really is just a way to, how do we get people to sort of buy into our ideas in the workplace. So as I go through these, please contemplate which of these styles resonates with you. Which one of these maybe you can say, this is how I might show up around people. I like to often use the metaphor of our shoes off self. I use this a lot in Myers-Briggs, but who are we at our core? So what style do we go to? What's our go-to when we're sitting like in our comfortable chair at home? And what is that shows up for us? So the first style is assertiveness, to be assertive. And that is a behavior that enables a person to act in his or her own best interest, and often considers the interests of others as well. It also, when we're in that assertive state, we're able to express our feelings very honestly, and very true, I guess. I was thinking about a situation in one of our staff meetings where there was a popular idea that everybody was buying into, and I really didn't feel that strongly about it. And it was scary, to sort of express my views in a very honest way in front of my colleagues. Of course, I got nothing but support, and it felt really good, but it was really scary to kind of jump into that mode and be assertive and to really speak up as to what my thought was, even though it was not the popular thought at the moment. The next style is called concealed aggressive behavior, and this can be accompanied with some sort of hostile thoughts, I guess. Hostile is a little bit of a strong word, but it's sort of the language that they use in the assessment. But I would imagine it's sort of some thoughts where you feel a little bit of anger, maybe, behind it. The difference is that it's concealed. So maybe liken it to kind of a passive-aggressive type behavior, where you kind of suppress it internally, but then it comes out eventually. And when it does come out, it really can catch someone off guard. So it's one of those situations where you feel a sort of hostility about something, but you kind of, what I say, like brush it under the rug for a while, and then it eventually comes out. The beach ball analogy is helpful. When you're in a pool and you have a beach ball and you try to keep it underwater, you keep pushing it down, you can only do that for so long, and then eventually the ball wants to surface. And that's similar to this type of behavior, kind of suppressing it over time, but eventually it's going to, surface above water. The third type is the opposite of concealed. It's openly aggressive behavior. They believe that they have rights that others do not. Openly aggressive behavior, people often think that they're never wrong. In a way, I sometimes appreciate openly aggressive behavior sometimes, because I kind of know where I stand. Although I'm not a big fan of the word aggressive, I really do appreciate when somebody just blatantly says, here's what I think. It may not come out the most tactful, but it can really be helpful for folks to sort of sit with that, because they're able to walk away pretty clear about where that person is coming from. With this type of behavior, I think one thing to think about, which we'll get into in the class, is when is it appropriate to maybe display that behavior, and how it shows up, because there are different ways to be openly aggressive. There's raising your voice, or it could simply be just very adamantly stating what you want and why in that moment. And the fourth behavior is passive. So individuals who behave passively believe that they do not have a say or a right to speak their mind. They feel very, sometimes I think this behavior can look a little bit like a victim. That, oh, you don't want to hear what I have to say, it's okay, never mind. Passive behavior can be seen as kind of a placater, just really being okay with appeasing everyone. I think what happens is with the passive behavior is people truly feel that they just do not have a say in what is being discussed at the moment. So with that very brief background of the four different behaviors, I want you to sort of think about which of those four really speaks to you as far as how you might show up a lot at work, and to just be aware of it over the next couple weeks as you go to meetings, participate in decision making. I know a few of you work in a municipality, thinking about, or customer service, working with folks that call you, maybe you get a phone call or a customer that comes to you openly aggressive, but how do you respond to that behavior? So it's not only how you behave, but how others behave and how we react to it.